I'm back with another video on the Brompton front carrier problem. I have finally received the item that is an upgrade that I ordered from London. It took a while and they still haven't even sent all the screws, but the item looks absolutely beautiful, as you can see on the pictures and later on in the video. It's a really cool looking, very well made two-tone metal plated object. If you're new to this channel is not a Brompton channel. I talk about that a lot, but I talk about other small wheel stuff as well, electric bikes, scooters, even motorcycles. And I have a link below if you want to check out any of the merchandise I am recommending. In fact, I'm going to put a link to this company into the link section once I receive the missing screws. So here we go. Front block has not been damaged. To fix the problem, I only needed a new screw set. And as you can see, you can buy the screws for pennies, literally. $3.50 for the whole set. You even get the new metal plate. It is really nothing to complain about. Or you can buy the whole plastic front with all the screws and plates and everything for $6. Maybe if I went to my local place, it might have been $10, but still a very cheap deal. But once I explored the custom options out there, I just could not resist spending $50 on one of these, except mine is a two-tone, so it's even more attractive than these. These are very nice. They are either titanium or some kind of an aluminum alloy. I don't really care about the weight, but I ordered one for $50. And the quality of the product is really good. It looks really good. Unfortunately, they sent the wrong screws, so I have to wait for another 10 days to ship the right screws from London. But if I finally assemble it and I like the product, I'm going to place a link into my link section to this company in London, because they seem to have really good stuff. I really like this backpack attachment for only $50. And here is the attachment I received from London. As you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous, but it's designed totally differently from the stock piece. This is a two-piece construction, and it has to be two pieces that you can disassemble, because otherwise you would not be able to screw it into the frame. There is a trigger, but the trigger takes up a lot of space, so the only way to screw in the screws is to separate the two parts. The Brompton design is an ingenious design made very cheaply, with a trigger that has no springs in it. It's just a piece of plastic that bends by itself. Taking it apart takes a bit of an effort because it's so precisely made, and I was actually impressed by how precisely made it is and how snug the fit is. This is a truly very precise snap, and you can see that the holes are kind of elongated, so you can even vary the the installation, like how high or how low you want to install it, which can come in handy if you want to use a custom headlight, which I have had in the past. And they sent me the correct screws to assemble the carrier block, but not the screws that would attach it to the frame. You can see that the part that goes into the frame is very narrow. It's much more narrow than the Brompton. The Brompton has a very wide back that hugs the front tube of the Brompton, so it's really stable. Even though it is cheap, ridiculously cheap, it's actually very sturdy, and I have been riding like crazy with this front attachment for the last 5 years, at least 13 pounds in the bag, and I often shop on top of carrying the heavy front battery. And the screws broke because they were not tight, but the block has no damage. I could have just bought a set of screws and I could have just reinstalled the same block. And it's not impossible that I'm going to buy a set of screws and keep this block just in case. There's really no reason to discard it because it's a solid piece. There's no damage to it. I can reuse it as many times as I want to. Although it's also true that I could just buy a new block for $6 or $7, so who cares? Here you see a little bit of damage and the handle at the end, the trigger, because it was rubbing against the custom light I installed. So this is when that adjustability would come in handy that I have with the new piece. I cannot install it right now. Once I receive the screws and it is installed, I'll publish a new video on it. I hope it's going to fit great because so far it's looking really cool. Finally, I would like to respond to some of the questions in the comment section. The first question is isn't the plastic carrier block the right choice? So, has Brompton made a mistake by making a $6 or $10 cheap set that is attached to the front of the frame rather than to miter on a piece of metal or bolt something on? I think the block is an ingenious way of cutting cost since you don't see it anyway because you're attaching a bag onto it. It really doesn't matter if it's plastic and it doesn't look good. And the engineering is rock solid. My block has no problem. I could ride it for another 10 years with 20 pounds in the bag every day, and I have absolutely no doubt that it would last. So yes, the plastic block itself is not the problem. The problem isn't even the screws that are being used in terms of strength, because fully screwed in, the screws have not broken on anybody. So the only problem is the way it is assembled. The screws really should not be just screwed in. What you want is, what I would want is for the screws to be, use some kind of a product, use some kind of a silicone or some kind of a compound material to fasten the screws in and screw them in really tight. Of course, even in that case, you would have to check the screws here and there. And that would be just something, the Brompton company would be very reasonable to mention this in the brochure or whatever came with the product. So that's my comment on the plastic front. The other comment is mentioning that I have a much more powerful electric motor than even the electric Brompton is selling. Now keep in mind the 250 watt electric model Brompton is selling is not coming with the plastic attachment that I have. It has an extremely sturdy, some kind of a bolt. You can't see it from the plastic. I have tried to look at it because I know people who have that model, and you just can't see how it is attached, but it is attached rock solid. You cannot remove it, cannot replace it, cannot get into it unless you really start to wreck the whole thing and taking it apart. So in my case, you are just talking about, it doesn't really matter how powerful the bike is. I don't go any faster than the average Brompton can go. They can go maybe 30 miles an hour on a downhill. I hardly ever go up that high. I use my power maybe to get up on steep slopes, to get out of dangerous situations. And here and there, if a road bike should challenge me, I might take up that challenge. And I typically beat them as well. But what counts here is really just the weight of the bag. The bag attachment is rated at 22 pounds. And I'm very far from that unless I do a lot of heavy shopping, which I seldom do. And if I do, I have a separate bag for that. So I don't think I ever go above 15 pounds in the bag. The bottom line is, if you have a lot of stuff to carry around, if you shop frequently, if you hold any kind of serious weight in that bag, it's not a problem if you're under 22 pounds, but I'm just saying, check the screws. Every few months you have to remove the bag, remove the front plate of the original plastic carrier, and actually reach in with a screwdriver and make sure that the screws are properly screwed in. That's all I'm saying. This is it for this video. I'll be back with the next one once I have installed the new front carrier.